One of the most sacred moments in the Old Testament is when God instructs Moses to build a tabernacle surrounded by heavy curtains. This is in the book of Exodus. And within this tabernacle, he is to place an ark made of acacia wood, covered with gold inside and out. And inside this ark, the Ark of the Covenant, was placed three things: a golden jar holding some of the manna that they had fed on in the wilderness, Aaron's rod that had budded miraculously, and the stone tablets of the covenant containing the 10 Commandments. This is the most sacred object by far that the Jews had. The Ark of the Covenant is the object through which God dwells among his people, and it is unimaginably sacred, carried from place to place. And finally, the splendid temple is built by Solomon, the son of David, in Jerusalem, constructed to house this most sacred ark. And there's nowhere on earth as sacred as the temple, and especially the Holy of Holies inside the temple that contains this sacred ark. So all the sacredness of God is focused on this one place. Today's feast, the Feast of the Presentation of Our Lady, is all about Our Lady's association with the temple. At one level, it is about her being presented in the temple, being brought into the temple. And there's a tradition that goes back to what we call an apocryphal gospel of James. Apocryphal meaning it's a pious story, but it does not have the same value or the same, but even historical value, but certainly does not have the stamp of approval that the four Gospels have. And yet it's very pious, and it tells us things. It reveals to us certain things, perhaps about Our Lady and about the life of Our Lady. Because in this apocryphal Gospel of James, he speaks of Our Lady being presented by her parents, Joachim and Anna, in the temple and consecrated to God at the age of 3 in preparation for her vocation to be the Mother of God. And according to the apocryphal gospel, she remains there in the temple until her 12th year, at which point Joseph is assigned to be her guardian. Now, that's at one level a story which is a pious story which we could believe or not believe. It doesn't matter too much. But it is also saying something more about Our Lady and the temple, something deeper, in fact, about Our Lady. Not that she is just presented in the temple, but that more properly speaking, she is the temple. She is the place now where God chooses to dwell on earth in a very, very special way, in a much more profound and real way than ever God dwelt in the Ark of the Covenant or in the temple in Jerusalem. Even though God had a very special dwelling there, as they talk of the Shekinah, the overshadowing, this sacred presence of God over the temple and over the Ark of the Covenant. Well, the same term is used of Our Lady, in fact, the Shekinah, divine overdwelling of Our Lady. But it's now in Our Lady that we see God dwelling in this most special way. She is where God chooses to dwell fully, just as he chose to dwell in a mysterious way in the ark and in the temple. The Catechism of the Catholic Church puts it this way: Mary, in whom the Lord himself has just made his dwelling, is the daughter of Zion in person, the Ark of the Covenant, the place where the glory of God, of the Lord, dwells. She is the dwelling of God with men. They're very strong words. Of nobody else could that be said. Our Lady's vocation is so special. Now, just as God ensured that the Ark of the Covenant would be very beautifully constructed of this very precious wood, acacia wood, lined with gold inside and outside. Well, much more so Our Lady. Our Lady, if we could say the construction, the preparation of Our Lady is much more careful, much more intense. She is much more beautiful than even the most beautifully constructed ark on earth. Hence, in the Litany of Loretto, in fact, we call her the Ark of the Covenant, the House of Gold. And House of Gold is particularly fitting given that the ark is covered with gold. Our Lady is covered with much more precious gold, and that is the grace of God. She is full of grace, as the angel says to her. She is through and through gold. We have it in the first reading from today's feast, from Zechariah. It begins, "Sing, rejoice, daughter of Zion, for I am coming to dwell in the middle of you. It is the Lord who speaks." We could see that as referring to Israel, but also it is applied here clearly to Our Lady. God has chosen to dwell right in the heart of Our Lady, in her womb. And not just in her physically, of course, but in her whole person, in that she again is full of grace. She is the most profound connection with God that any creature has ever had, profounder, deeper than even all the angels. It finishes, let all mankind be silent before the Lord, for he is awaking and coming from his holy dwelling. Beautiful description of the incarnation. Be silent, as we are at Christmas, in fact. Be silent, watching God coming from his holy dwelling, heavenly dwelling, into this earthly dwelling, which is Our Lady. There's also actually a nice coincidence that the rebuilding of Solomon's temple took place around the time when Our Lady must have been born, 20 BC. And it is the preparation, the work that goes on is spectacular when you read about it. And it must have been one of the most, if not the most, spectacular building on earth. And it is completed 46 years later, just around the time when Christ is beginning his public life. And it is destroyed in the famous siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD by the Romans, sometime after Our Lady must have been assumed into heaven. So there's this amazing coincidence, in fact, of that, the life of that, what we call the second temple, with the life of Our Lady on earth. Finally, today, November the 21st, is also a day of prayer in a special way for cloistered religious, those who are totally dedicated to God in prayer, silence, and concealment. Very nice that we would pray for them, thinking of Our Lady, that pious story of her being presented in the temple. But it does make us think of all those who dedicate themselves to God silently in contemplation and prayer. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.